Dr. Kiera Altair sat comfortably within the soft white glow of the botanical observatorium, fluorescent veins of biodome lights above, acting as a faux sun for her shipboard Eden. Through the semi-transparent separators, she watched the silent dance of distant stars, engulfed in a curtain of black, shimmering against the micro-oxygenated space of her orchard. It was here, aboard the Genesis Ark, that she had the formidable responsibility of playing God, creating bright new worlds from the desolation of cosmic nothingness. Kiera lived in the company of silent organics. The hums of the spaceship were her background score, the genetic sequencer her greatest companion. The creations of her green fingers, a wide assortment of genetically restructured seeds and plant samples, had become both purpose and family. Today, her purpose was an untamed fragment of Mars. The planet was as red as rust, but over time, her green progenies would reclaim its barren surface, turning the blooded soil into a serenade of emerald life. She set the assembler to work on a sequence that favored nitrogen fixation and carbon conversion, the primary step toward terraforming. The device hummed, splitting and splicing on a scale so infinitesimal it was almost philosophical. As she waited, her fingers traced over numerous samples kept in the sterile aluminum cases, each a critical piece of the planetary puzzle. But as matched and rematched as they were, a distinctive pebble-sized seed stood out in its isolation. A tiny footnote in her meticulously maintained catalogue that bore no label, no assigned case, and no recorded data. Curiosity stirred within her. Mars could wait a day, Kiera mused, her focus redirected toward this enigmatic capsule of life. She placed it within a separate cultivation pod, coded it for growth, and initiated an observational routine. Life from lifelessness was a slow miracle that needed time, and Kiera had nothing but an abundance of it. The unlabeled sample, unlike anything she'd handled before, sprouted a shoot not long after. The vascular seedling burst forth with an eager, unnatural vigor, unmatched by any of her earlier samples. Kiera found herself intrigued, watching its development. Segmented leaves, yellow-green tendrils, and a dynamic root system that moved like thoughtful fingers, searching and anchoring in the pod. As days turned into weeks, the plant grew with a tenacity Kiera could only wonder at. Its alienness began to reveal itself. Luminescent blooms contrasting against the spaceship's clinical sterility, the rhythmic pulsing of its leaves like a living heartbeat, the swaying tendrils reacting sharply to her touch. There was a capricious quality to this life form, an unpredictable spark that she found compelling. Simultaneously, a steady anomaly within the Genesis Ark system started making itself visible. Functions would falter randomly, only to right themselves again, and specific sectors showed variations in atmospheric composition. At first, these appeared irrelevant, the usual bugs of a vast system functioning in deep space. Over time, however, as the plant continued to flourish, Kiera began to notice patterns, specific correlations between the plant's growth and the Ark's anomalies. Chills ran down her spine as she hypothesized an almost unbelievable causation. Was the plant affecting the spaceship? Could it be that this living, breathing botanic specimen was, in a way, communicating? This was an anomaly far from her regular duties, an unsolvable puzzle that had floated aimlessly into her biological solitaire. Up until now, her role had been to create guardians, life that would serve, protect, and rejuvenate the host planets. But as Kiera peered at the thriving, pulsating oddity in her pod, she knew this was a guest that had made itself at home, in a place that was never intended for it. She was no longer alone in her journey through the void. Unseen, unheard, a conversation was blooming amidst her Eden, one that was beginning to resonate through the metal veins of her cosmic ark. A silent revolution was taking place in the heart of loneliness, on a spaceship hurtling through the black abyss of space under the meticulous watch of a sole bioengineer who until now believed she was alone. And so began a celestial tale of coexistence, a burgeoning saga scripted by a mysterious seed and a woman who played God. The plant continued to push the boundaries, its root system burrowing further into the cultivation pod, and its tendrils reaching out as if tasting the artificial air of the spaceship. Each time Kiera came within proximity, the plant would erupt into a symphony of movement and color, the leaves fluttering and the vibrant luminescence of the flowers pulsating stronger. It was as if the plant were trying to communicate, Meanwhile, the anomalies within the ship grew more pronounced. The environmental controls displayed erratic data. Oxygen content kept increasing and decreasing in irregular patterns, humidity levels fluctuated, and temperatures varied across different sections. Startled and curious, Kiera observed that the abnormalities mirrored the botanical growth phases of the plant, a puzzling and peculiar correlation. With trepidation, Kiera ran a comprehensive analytical scan. If the plant had indeed found a way to manipulate the spaceship's environment, a feature completely alien to any plant genetic code she knew, then it was indeed a champion of adaptation. It was a fascinating conundrum, a plant that was shaping its surroundings to fit its needs, as opposed to adapting to it. Kiera was living with a green rebel. As the data unfolded, her pseudo-sun flickered. The lights turned a deeper shade of purple, mimicking ultraviolet rays, the kind that bathed her home planet, and the air in the observatorium thickened. It seemed as if the plant was creating its own augmented ecosystem within the confines of her spaceship. The revelation shook Kiera. She had seen microbe-sized life flourish and adapt aboard the Genesis Ark, but this was something completely different, a foreign entity taking command of her world. Mars had been her objective, terraforming a dead planet into a living one. Now she was cast reluctantly into an eccentric endgame of survival. Her Genesis Ark was turning alien. She began to wage a silent war on this transformation. She coded new directives into the Genesis Ark systems, trying to prevent the plant from accelerating its growth, softening its invasive actions. But to her dismay, none of her countermeasures would take hold. And worst, the plant seemed to retaliate, amplifying features that disrupted the spaceship's functions even more. By the time the fourth week rolled in, it was clear the plant was miles ahead of her. Determined against her interventions, it rooted itself deeper into the ship's life support systems. Her spaceship, her world populated by tweaked greens and neon hues, was mutating. One day, as she documented the plant's relentless progress, the neon flowers pulsed faster. Kiera stepped closer, and then she heard it. Amidst the low hum of her spaceship and the soft chatter of her devices came a sound. It was organic, musical, a song of notes that fluctuated with the beating rhythm of the luminescent plant. Kiera realized in awe, the plant wasn't just shaping the environment, taking over her shipboard Eden. It was trying to talk, to communicate with her. This was uncharted frontiers of botany, a groundbreaking discovery. The sound whispered stories of possibilities yet unexplored. Was this a gift of chance or arsenal of war? As Kiera stared at the plant in the dimming light of the spaceship, she swore she could almost see a blend of mischief and mirth twirling within the dancing lights of the plant. The backdrop of silent stars bore mute witness to this game of cosmic conquest, a power play whose course was being determined by lenses of green, and a woman who had invented the rules. Kiera, her features bathed in the ethereal glow of the conclave of pulsing flowers, steeled herself against the wave of apprehension that had been building in her. Was this a friendly exchange or a covert infiltration? She logged a recording of the intriguing sound and ran it through Ark's decoders, but the results threw her deeper into the enigma. The melodic sequence was too complex, too nuanced, bordering on sentience. It was like nothing the decoders had ever attempted. The plant was not just alive, it was aware. An awareness that had been born within the metal womb of her ship, an awareness that was now reaching out to her. The plant, no, the entity, had advanced further, blurring the sterile distinction between ship and sanctuary, between object and organism. The spaceship's system functions, inspired by the alien rhythm, had started to behave differently, showing signs of self-optimization and intelligence. The Genesis Ark had begun to breathe and pulsate with the rhythm of the alien lifeform, a distant reflection of the organism's own luminescent pulses. The echoes of enhanced growth, of heightened existence, murmured across the corridors, leading back to the central observatorium where the entity held court. It was symbiosis on a scale she had never imagined. The ship, her once familiar world, was transforming into a living, thriving microcosm of the entity's world. A new kind of Eden was blooming aboard the Genesis Ark, and she was a bewildered spectator in this grand orchestration of cosmic change. As days blurred into weeks, Kiera observed and adapted to the extraordinary play of nature unfolding around her. There rose a new rhythm within the confines of the ship, baked with strange hues of luminescent violet and tinted greens. It was a rhythm that was oddly comforting and deeply alien. It hinted at a negotiation, a promise of something fundamentally groundbreaking. In this rhythm, Kiera found a connection, an invisible thread that bound her to the entity. She responded to it, her actions mirroring the gradual shifts, her presence within the ship, now a part of the entity's symphony. The once solo journey of the bioengineer into the black cosmos had evolved into a duet, a harmonic play binding them together, an uncanny binary system on a spaceship plunging deeper into the cosmos. When the first synaptic interface sparked to life on the Ark's mainframe, it solidified everything Kiera had suspected. Arcs of electricity danced and cracked through air thick with the sensorial signatures of the entity, forming a neural network, illuminating the metal bowels of the ship in dancing ethereal lights. This was it, the realization of her bizarre hypothesis. The entity wanted to communicate, and it had found a way. As the network hummed to life, Kiera Altair found herself standing on the brink of an unprecedented discovery. High-stakes anticipation coursed through her, a wicked cocktail of fear and exhilaration. The Genesis Ark, once the instrument of her divine project, had become a womb bearing the marvel of the entity. She was about to converse with a life form that wasn't her creation, a mysterious game-changer birthed from a seed dancing within the echoes of the cosmos. And then she heard it, a low throbbing hum, ebbing and flowing through the Ark, the voice of the entity speaking through the ship, reaching out to her, the woman who had created life from dust and rock, and the life that had grown against all odds. It was time for Kiera to have a conversation with her shipboard Eden. A conversation, she realized, that wasn't just hers to have, but also one that would dictate the course of this magnificent cosmic voyage. Sound echoed through the Ark, resonating in the very core of Kiera's being. The once sterile ship thrummed with the visceral pulsating call of the alien entity. From every surface, through every mechanical organ of her massive spacecraft, life called out to her. The blossoming comprehension within her seized every fiber of her attention as she tuned into the entity's voice, the rhythmic cadence that bore semblance to pulses and whispers. Months of ceaseless study, of tireless vigil, were now culminating, coalescing into patterns of recognition as she beckoned the synthesizers within her workspace to translate the alien sequence. Veiled within abstraction and chaos was an unexpected harmony that engulfed her. The Ark, in partnership with the entity, was manipulating sound waves and light frequencies to defy the barriers of communication. As she navigated deeper into the melodic dance, the alien composition made her oblivious to the spaceship's transformation. The luminescent flowers had started to bloom wider, their rhythmic pulsing intensifying, and all aboard the spacecraft seemed to resonate in tandem. The entity's world was teeming around her, a twilight wonderland within her once metallic sanctum. The Edenic exigency seemed to emulate the balanced ecosystem of the Earth she had left behind. The entity, in its own alien fashion, was performing Kiera's task of terraforming, albeit on the ship specifically altered for the opposite. The Ark's system interface shuddered, crackled, and then whirred back to life. Words. Words born from the subtle dance of light and sound filled the silence of the ship, unintelligible yet sentient. The Ark's system translated these alien pulses into a comprehensible language, a melody that sung tales of stars. As the alien language found agreeable morphism in English, the entity spoke of its existence, its travels, its inheritance, of cosmic epochs aging and dying, of civilizations gaining and losing their celestial foothold, of existence as a microscopic legacy within the seed and the journey for survival. It relayed stories of countless stars, of the embrace of dark voids that knew no sun, of ascension toward enlightenment, breaking the corporeal shackles by becoming one with the universe. The ship shuddered, the air now laden with intense flora scent, carrying the message of the entity. Kiera absorbed it, letting the cosmic consciousness intertwine with every wrinkle of her mind, dispelling isolation, replacing it with an intimate bond. The beauty of the entity's purpose resonated within her, as she echoed in confirmation to each of the entity's notes. She responded, her voice not solitary anymore, but accompanied by the resonating hum of the spaceship. The conversation she had been waiting for was happening, in the backdrop of distant stars, and amidst the luminescent glow that had invigorated Ark's sterility. Her thoughts swirled within her, weaving in recesses of her mind as she spoke, listened, learned, and conversed with the entity. The galaxy outside the Ark continued to spin, indifferent to the dynamics of cohabitation and communication within. However, within the confines of the spaceship, an inexplicable force steadily worked toward resolution. Not an upheaval, but more of a mutual adaptation, a meeting ground for human and the alien. And thus, Kiera Altair, the lone bioengineer, found herself amidst a conversation that was altering the course of her voyage. The dialogue of two unmet existences had forged a celestial bond so uncanny that she felt she was neither alone nor the master of her engineer's Eden. Lost in time, space, and now companionship, Kiera encountered an unexpected divergence in her journey, one that was nurturing an alien civilization within her spaceship. Kiera stood resolute, the weight of revelation echoing in the symphony of pulsating lights before her. The harmony reached out, wrapping her consciousness in the resonating truths of the cosmos. The entity, through her precious ship, had unveiled its identity, a nomadic life form that, just like her, had taken to the stars in search of preservation. The entity was but a messenger, a preservation vessel for a microscopic civilization that had lived and thrived within the boundaries of the seed. Across countless eons, it had endured endless cosmic cycles of darkness, and now it sought existence in its own evolved form, molding the confines of her ship into an echo of its ancestral home. Suddenly, conflict writhed within her. On one side lay her duty, the mission she was to complete, her Eden to birth. On the other end, the cosmic viewfinder revealed an unprecedented reality, a civilization previously lost, now found, surviving within her spaceship. Were they not both seeds journeying through the cosmos in search of fertile ground? With newfound determination, she streamed directives to the Ark's central command, persuading the ship to partition its parameters, to accommodate the dual existence of Terran and alien. The modules hummed, the keystrokes echoed in the silence, and slowly, derelict sections of the Ark began to shut down, creating a quarantine for the entity to thrive, to evolve, without harming her mission. And then, she waited for the ship's new command to reroute and repurpose, waited for the entity to mold its new home while keeping hers intact. The hiccup was an intense silence, the lull before the storm, every passing second an epoch of anticipation. And then the entity stirred. It sprouted, curled, extended, and receded in synchronization with the Ark. Sections of the Ark dimmed, settled into dormancy, and compensated their essential functionings to the remaining spaces. The entity, too, embraced this partition, its growth regulated, contained into an assigned boundary. Then, a voice. "Partition successful," it echoed, taking the form of words. It resonated from the heart of the plant, through the veins of her spaceship, vibrating in the deep silence of the observatorium. A conversation had taken place, a negotiation between the Ark, the woman aboard it, and the entity thriving within. A strange dance of colors marked the twinning of two worlds within the confines of the spaceship. Now Kiera was not alone. A civilization, minute yet significant, pulsed with life within the Ark, turning the spaceship into a floating sphere of cohabitation. In a realm far from Earth, in the silent, inexorable womb of the cosmos, aboard a spaceship that had now become an ark of life for two civilizations, Kiera Altair embraced an alien transformation of her journey. The Genesis Ark, once humanity's crown jewel of celestial terraforming, had huddled within itself a burgeoning microscopic world. As the observatorium bloomed in the silent affirmation of unison, Kiera gazed out into the sea of stars, her purpose transforming yet resounding within her core. Bathed in the shared glow of the ship and the entity, she realized that it was no longer a voyage of the solitary kind. She, a woman who had crafted life through the ashes of death, had forged an untread alliance in her quest for survival. As days bled into weeks, and terror began to rise on the horizon, Kiera sat nestled between the human and the alien, between known ambition and newfound purpose. Across the void of space and time, her once secluded voyage echoed to the tune of Terran and alien, an uncanny union under a shared symphony of existence.